Hey everybody, this is Rydo and we're back to another live stream of Shadowverse. There's a new expansion on Shadowverse, so we've got a new image here. Today is Monday, September 27th. Starting a little late, I was experimenting while video was uploading on trying to use OBS as kind of the default framework to make thumbnails. It's still going to be a very early process, and there's a couple of steps that are still kind of just missing. And immediately we're going to have network trouble. Alright, there we go. Yep. And what's ridiculous about Shadowverse, I think, is that it just doesn't properly implement the Steam update system, because there was an update available for the core app in Steam that would have automatically updated last night and did automatically update, but then all it really does is change the way the game starts and then takes you to these data download elements that doesn't really make a lot of sense. Now it kind of makes sense, since this is also a mobile game, that you might make the core part of your app only update when there needs to be security updates, and all the actual data is downloaded when you actually launch the app, if you ever actually launch the app. Particularly on Android, I've noticed that there's definitely apps I have that have specifically updated hundreds, if not thousands of times in between the times I actually load them, because they're just apps I have sitting on my store on my cell phone and never really use. Alright, so yeah, would be kind of nice. We're now up to Battle Pass Season 5. I still feel like the Battle Passes are a really dumb idea and not something that's welcome. Yeah, we can claim a 10 card packs for the new expansion and a temporary deck. So let's just claim all. Okay. And then that means we should come over here, and we do have enough packs to do a pack opening here. So you need real world crystals still to get the good stuff. We could buy, I think 50 packs is more than enough. Although actually we probably should just buy 75 packs now and get a little bit ahead of the curve. Alright, so there's very little reason to push for something else. The oldest set of cards is now gone. So if I was going to do anything extra, let's start with these 14. So we'll start with 10 there. Yeah, if I was going to push for anything extra, I would just open one pack of every other thing, and I think that's about your best bet. Yeah. And so we've got all kinds of new cards, and at what point am I really going to look at them is, I guess, the question. Because honestly, I really just want to look at the pictures. I don't even really care what they do until I actually play with them. So, yeah. I'm so mentally checked out as far as Shadowverse, as far as I just don't really care about the gameplay. It has beaten me down with its daily quests and just over demanding requirements for daily quests that all I really want to see is the anime art style, and honestly that's all I really wanted to see before. That does definitely make an argument towards moving over to what is probably a more simplistic gameplay in the Pokemon card game. Yeah, if Pokemon is just stupidly easy, that might help me cover the news a little bit quicker. Um, yeah, I don't like this at all. This is just way too much um, of the same color palette and the same clothing. Um, and frankly, it's just way too much skin being covered compared to all the other characters who usually have legs or arms uncovered. Not just the girls, but also the guys tend to not be completely covered from the top of their neck to their wrists and all the way down to their toes. Now, he is a vampire, so maybe there's a logical reason why he'd be completely covered. So, yeah, maybe I should move over to the Pokemon card game. That would be really easy. Speaking of stupidly easy things, I didn't get any scheduling done over the weekend, but I did accomplish quite a bit. In fact, I kind of blacked out just how much time I spent. Interesting. Brand of the Morning Star. The Morning Star being one of the ways to refer to Lucifer. Um, yeah. So, yeah, I spent nearly 5 hours playing cross cells all the way through. Just one super long spotlight that I should have broken up, definitely. And I was incredibly disappointed with cross cells. As the game that, according to Steam, came out a year after Hex Cells Infinite, it is way, way worse than Hex Cells Infinite, and probably even worse than Hex Cells, the original game. And there's really no excuse for it, frankly. It's the same person. He would have had to have had the same skill. The only thing I could think is that maybe Cross Cells was made first and then released on another platform, and then Hex Cells was released on Steam, and then he went back and released his older game. That would be the only excusable reason as to why it's so bad. But honestly, there's been 20 updates to Hex Cells Infinite. It wouldn't have been crazy for there to have been at least one update to fix the visuals, which are major problems in Cross Cells. And Cross Cells, even compared to Hex Cells, isn't even as complicated of a game. It's just Pictocross with some, what I think is called light bulb Sudoku elements sometimes. And there's only 36 puzzles in it. And yeah, it's not really, it was not a good experience. I also played a game called Fingered from Edmund McMillan, the creator of Binding of Isaac, which is far too much of a social commentary game where you're supposed to identify the criminal in a police lineup. And it's far too random, far too subjective as far as the 4 hints you get from the witness. And you really just end up having to guess sometimes enough that you can fail, and one fail just starts you over. And unlike Binding of Isaac, which is a roguelite game, it really is a roguelike game, Like, in the sense that when you die, it starts all over again, and no progression carries over at all in Fingered. And it's just too simplistic of a game with one gameplay mechanic when really it needed 2 or 3 gameplay mechanics and maybe some more story. Clearly, there's a social commentary there that it is practically completely impossible to really trust eyewitness identifications, and police know this and they use that to their own advantage, and prosecutors know this and use that to their own advantage. Very rarely, one would hope, and I think it's true, does someone get convicted solely on an eyewitness identification, but it has happened in the past and probably shouldn't. But then there's also commentary on the fact that every single character in the lineup is male, so even though there is quite a lot of them that cross-dress and are wearing female clothing, but then they all look like these weird kind of Muppet-like monsters. And so when one says one looks weird, they all look weird. And then they'll sometimes say one looks fat, and then some of them are kind of in the middle. So it's hard to tell in the randomized. It's kind of like random paper cutout doll creation of characters. And then the only other secondary element, there's a lot of detail in this because they zoomed in so much, which that's nice, but you kind of wish you would see that in a lot of these drawings. But arguably, a lot of these drawings do have too much detail in the background, and it makes the character kind of blend in. Whereas I could see this ground being barely broken and being less red to so it doesn't clash with the red skin of the ogre, and then I could see in the background just basically nothing, just a general color. See, this is better as far as a general nothing in the background, but it's still in that same color palette, so it doesn't really make these characters pop out. These characters aren't having that comic book style thick black outline around their edges, so they do very often, and they aren't just completely blend into the background. So yeah, I spent probably another 5 hours playing Fingered, and in that case I was doing more of an experiment. In both cases I was kind of doing an experiment where I was pausing the recording and then playing a lot off screen and then unpausing the recording, thinking that there would only be one video, and there was only one video, but they still ended up to be super long videos. And then I played a way too simplistic Asmodee digital card game called Love Letter, which just generally, since it's based off a real world card game, the real world card game is way too simplistic, and the digital version of it did nothing to help. It simply just doesn't have enough options and enough like enough reasons that you would want to come back and play. It's the first game I've played in a really long time that did not have any alright, so that was 10, and I guess we'll do 50 of the new one, and then we'll do one of everything else. We'll have to hurry now. We've looked at some of the cards, so that's a bit of a sampling, but I don't want to spend an extra 20 minutes going through cards. One thing I can say that's nice about Shadowverse, though, is that they don't just bring out cards that are the exact same 2/2 bears. They usually will bring out cards that have at least something that has a slightly different element to it as far as its effects. But then they kind of abandon those effects, so unlike Magic the Gathering or Hearthstone, there aren't concepts and effects that last long and get expanded upon, other than the very basic ones that the game has always had, such as Storm and Rush. Now, I think the logic here is to buy as many of the cards as possible. This looks kind of Disney. You want to probably buy as many cards as possible now. That way, when the new expansion comes out and they add the newer platinum cards, you then have an excuse to focus on buying just a new expansion and not go back and buy the other expansion. Although I think it's just kind of weird that they have these half-step expansions to packs, and so it's like mini expansions on top of expansions. That's not something I've seen any other card game do. Yeah. It really is just going to come down to trying to figure out what cards are good. Might be worth it to just play today and pick up the free temporary deck on Wednesday. That might be the right move, logically. So yeah, I played Fingered, I played Love Letter. It was awful as a digital conversion of an awful card game. Honestly, there's no reason why you would play Love Letter or make Love Letter the way it is made. It has less cards than a deck of cards, so you could easily just play Love Letter using a regular deck of cards, and you could make it a lot more interesting using a full deck of cards instead of the way it has. It has a all or nothing concept as far as the rounds, where you can easily lose a round through one action, where you could but then it wants you to win first to 4 by default. So it would make a lot more sense to simply have 3 mistakes in one round instead of 4 rounds, or however many rounds it takes to get to 4 victories. It's just way too oversimplified, even if it was supposed to be a game for kids. And then the subject matter on it doesn't really feel like it would be for kids. I don't know who it would really be for. Maybe very young girls, and that's about it. But even then, I don't think it tells a particularly good meta-narrative around the idea of love letter, because you're just trying to get your love letter to the princess is the narrative, and you're trying to stop other love letters from reaching the princess, and that's the 2-sentence explanation that you're given. But it doesn't look like Disney princesses when they draw it. It's more realistic art style, and it's not the worst art style ever. This is a different kind of art style, but it's not particularly interesting or good. And yeah, I seriously doubt too many boys would want to play Love Letter, nor do I think too many adults would want to play Love Letter. So it really is just in that mushy middle. And Asmodee games always are in that place where they make these cheap digital versions that are I think, potentially intentionally made worse than the physical real-world versions of the games. But then a lot of the physical real-world games are kind of boring and not worth playing in the first place. I'm not much of a board game type fan anyway, so maybe there is an audience out there that's just not probably very much in line with video gamers that do like to play board games. I would totally believe that there's a collection of people who are... They have a tactical dog. Interesting. We're getting quite a few dog pictures. There might be quite a few people that just hate technology and never want to learn technology, and so they are playing board games and card games. more than an average person would. But yeah, I don't think the Luddite audience is probably big enough to sustain board games. And generally, and I talked about this, I think parents in general might be very happy if the world came together and made it illegal, or put at least heavy restrictions on the creation and sale of extremely disposable, gonna end up in the landfill in less than 2 years, products and toys in particular. Toys in particular, because those are not needs, those are wants. And then that would definitely help parents not have to buy so many toys. And just the amount of trees to make the cardboard and petroleum used to make the plastic for your average Monopoly game or board game, or card games usually don't have that much plastic garbage in them, but there is just a ton of plastic garbage in board games. And it's the second you lose a piece or a card from a Monopoly set, the entire set is compromised, potentially trashable. Unlike, say, Legos, which can be taken apart and reused, and Lego is already moving towards plant-based plastics. And see, yeah, really, you could probably just enforce a requirement of a percentage of all plastic components to be made out of plant-based plastics instead of petroleum-based plastics. But even Legos have, tons of Legos have ended up in the ocean, as much as every other bit of trash have ended up in the oceans, and that's how you get the microplastics and the ocean plastics floating in the ocean, killing fish. But yeah, there's just way too much disposability. Dolls are way better. Like, a doll tends to stay around for quite a long time and is easily hand down. A doll being ripped can be sewn back together. I would even say, like, action figures, which are fully plastic, are still higher quality products, to the point where I could see, if you were to just put a subjective opinion piece on it and say that Hasbro would probably be more than willing to pay a tax on making plastic G.I. Joes, more than they would be willing to pay a tax to make plastic figurines for a Monopoly set. But in a lot of ways, most kids barely have any toys at all that are physical, and so it would be surprisingly easy to just kind of severely restrict or ban the sales of toys in total. But not because I hate children and want to traumatize them and not have them have toys. It's just a realization that you're giving these disposable items to these kids, and then the items get disposed of very quickly. But on the other hand, that is kind of the point of toys, is that they're supposed to be disposable. So there'd have to be a lot of hot debate around it, and a lot of thought. Kids are given toys to break them, to accidentally have them throw them away, to have them rub their filthy hands and germs all over them, and then the thing can be Lysoled. Whereas if you were to just give a 2-year-old a cell phone and say, all right, all your toys are digital and everything's on the cell phone, even if it was a super locked down kids mode cell phone, there is a fairly high chance that they would break the cell phone or not understand how it works. And I think there is probably a decent amount of logic towards the whole screen time limiting concept that is fairly popular at the moment. And then I started playing, so I played a lot, really. I started playing not Regency Solitaire, the kind of spiritual successor to Regency Solitaire, which is Shadowhand, and I made one episode of that. And so yeah, I feel like I made a lot of content, on top of which I also got a lot of side projects done. Still didn't work on the irrigation system some more though. But I think I might work on that tomorrow. Apparently a water main broke over the weekend and near where I was, and so they were making a lot of noise working on that. And before that, one of my neighbors apparently needed to do major repairs on his house, and so there was a considerable amount of repairmen working on his house, making a lot of noise. So I'm surprised I actually was able to make any content at all. But yeah, this is probably the one set that I shouldn't open cards for, because I think I probably have most of the cards for this set. Yeah. But then the rest of these, it definitely makes sense to just open one of everything. See if we can get lucky. See if there's a slight chance that your rates of return might be higher on the new day of an expansion versus any other random day. So is there anything else to talk about? No. I am in a weird position, certainly covering Shadowhand, in the fact that the creators of Regency Solitaire, Grey Alien Games, were at the time following people who tweeted them and included them in tweets fairly well, and so they would retweet me and promote my videos when I covered Regency Solitaire, and kind of oddly they offered me a free copy of Regency Solitaire after I had already started airing footage showing that I had already purchased the game, but whatever. Maybe they thought I just would give it away or something. So it's hard to be a video game critic and maintain your objectivity when you have somebody just treat you so nicely. Usually there's no contact between me and game developers, and I really am, after that point, started to try and make sure that was the case, because really I come from the opinion that critics are for consumers. We're giving purchasing advice. We're not really telling video game creators how to improve their games, and artists and creators of games should really just not listen to critics at all. So yeah, I have this kind of positive association by being treated nicely from the company, that I don't want to all of a sudden skew my criticism of Shadowhand, which I think that is very much where most mainstream video game journalists go wrong, is that they get sent to all kinds of events and they get treated so nicely by game developers that they start to feel like they're friends with the game developers, and then all of a sudden you have cases like Deathloop getting 10 out of 10 when there seems to be absolutely no legitimate reason why it should be rated 10 out of 10. And that's not even making an argument that there are no perfect games and no game should get 10 out of 10 or anything like that. It's just there's no way that Deathloop is better than, say, Dishonored, and I don't think Dishonored got a 10 out of 10, even if you're going to compare very similar games. But yeah, there's but otherwise, yeah, I'm gonna go through Shadowhand as a simplistic, well, slightly more complex than average solitaire game, and that'll be the next one I cover for a while, and still need to schedule things. Seems like we're getting a decent amount of platinum cards, and I forget whether these platinum cards specifically, some of these expansions I may never have bought even one pack for. Like, I forget if there are non-animated versions of the platinum level cards. Yeah, I definitely have not opened at least one pack of each of these. But there's so many here that it gets kind of hard to potentially say that you would ever have enough gold to open even 10 packs of one of the older expansions. And by the time 10 new expansions came around and I opened one pack of these expansions, that would be years and years had passed. Some of this artwork on these older cards definitely feel different. It really feels like there was at least two artists to start with this series, and they've either drastically changed their art style or been replaced for newer expansions at some point a couple of years ago, I would assume. And this is too much card pack opening because it's taking forever. That's a little too demonic for Shadowverse. I'm half wondering if they've kind of reshuffled some of these. No, I guess they probably haven't. That'd be kind of weird if they came out with new card expansions that had just old cards in a different mix and match. It would kind of make sense if there was like a classics pack, but that would only really make sense in the real world more than digital forms. It wouldn't be terrible though if they did re-release some of these cards. Bring back some cards instead of just constantly making new cards. Because when you actually look at it, we're at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, and I think 18 expansions now that really are pointless. If you're playing rotation, you can't use them in rotation. Versus 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 5 expansions that are still in rotation. That's too much left on the cutting room floor. Right. And so we could, I suppose, look specifically just at legendary cards and see what we've got new. Now we got some new legendary cards, but even that is like 24 pages. And what I'm seeing very easily here is that there's still a lot of these legendary cards that are temporary ones, and then having like 2 copies of a legendary card and then a temporary card definitely begs the question about maybe just selling the legendary card. Or I know the temporary cards are supposed to be relatively temporary in the sense that you can't sell them, but it feels like once you have 2 copies of a temporary card, which is I think the maximum you can have, you should get some of those gems back. And it doesn't really feel like there's a system there that does that. And then I see like 3 copies of these cards, but I thought you could only have 2. But maybe I'm wrong about that. We really should just be in create mode so that we can see a better indication of how many of these legendary cards are still necessary to get. And I guess what you would really want to do is come over here, you liquefy extras. There was 1 gold that was extra, 78 silver, and then 174 bronze. So you liquefy that. Then what you would want to do is say, give me all the cards except for Calamity. And then you would want just the bronze cards. And this is a weird way to set this up. And then you would want to be in create card mode. And then you would want to just go down this like 77 pages to see if there are any bronze cards to collect and craft. I think the answer is no, because I think I've already I think I already did all of the bronze. And so that means, except for the new expansion, there will only be higher than bronze level cards. Yeah. Theoretically, if there were some bronze cards that we didn't have, they would be way at the end here. And then I guess the next question would be the same question as far as silver. In create mode, are there any silver cards that haven't been crafted? And I would say probably not on silver either. Well, there are some. Interesting. So, yeah, you'd have to figure out, this is Chronogenesis. That's not the most recent one. So you craft 1 there. And then craft 1 there. So either I didn't finish out the silvers, or there is some bronzes that I missed. And this is 35 pages potentially. Which I wish there was an easier way to filter here. And that way you could say unowned only. Because then we'd have a very nice, simplistic a list of cards to craft. And very possibly we will either run out of vials fairly quickly, or we'll hit a point where all the silver ones have been crafted. Because usually I start at the front and work my way downward. So we may have already gotten the 2s and the 3s crafted. And I don't think cards disappear. That would really suck if they did. Just because of glitching would be the only excuse for a card disappearing from your library. There were some YouTubers that were sometimes given access to accounts that had all the cards in like Hearthstone and such. And that sounds very nice, but it would also kind of kill your momentum, I think, in playing a collectible card game. Once you have everything, once you've just so easily reached the top, you have to find other reasons to keep on playing at that point. And I guess if you're a big YouTuber and you have lots of viewers, that might be your reason to keep on playing. But I also have seen a lot of Hearthstone streamers effectively give up on streaming Hearthstone a few years ago. Yeah. Hearthstone streamers and Activision Blizzard, like celebrities, people playing Activision Blizzard games, were treated pretty badly, and I guess that might be taken as an indication of just how bad Activision Blizzard treats everybody, which is not an excuse by any means. If you're a jerk to everybody, you're still a jerk. That doesn't excuse your behavior. But that is actually an excuse I've heard jerks try to use, is that, oh, that's just how I am. I'm like that to everybody. It's like, that's not an excuse. And that's no reason for me to tolerate, or for any person to tolerate being mistreated simply because somebody claims, oh, I'm like that to everybody, or that's just who I am. And the appropriate response to something like that, particularly if you were a boss, would be, I'm telling you to change your behavior. If you can't do it, then we need to part ways here and now. Which basically means either stop acting that way or you're fired. And that works also in relationships, I think, fairly well too. It would be better to have somebody apologize and continuously make the same mistakes and continuously still be a jerk, but apologize every day than to unapologetically say, oh, that's just how I am, or that's my way, or I'm like that to everybody. That's not even the pretense of an apology at that point. That's a signal of no intention of considering your actions or changing at all. I'm going on a bit of a rant here, but yeah. That's something that is not taught in school. Like they say, one of the sayings in the United States of schools, you go to school to learn how to deal with people, and it's 100% false. They do not teach you how to deal with people. At best, you go to school to learn how to deal with teachers, which teachers in general tend to be megalomaniac, Napoleon complex people, or they tend to be cool, or have just a random thing. I don't want to paint them all with the same brush, but yeah, a lot of them tend to have a lot of personality problems. I mean, if you spend all day dealing with kids, it's not surprising that you wouldn't be perhaps the most socially adept person in the first place. But yeah, there really is no class to deal with people, and that really was even expanded as a more of a ridiculous element that I think even happens now in like kindergarten, pre-K, is that teachers will make up grades and basically profile kids, whether it's based on race, gender, or just nothing in general, and give them these citizenship grades, which are just like made up. We don't like this person, or this person has bad behavior, thus we're giving them a grade based on their behavior as we perceive it. And it's just like, yeah, even in kindergarten and first grade, though, you're not really teaching citizenship, not consistently. There's no class there. And then, alright, so we have run out of vials after opening all of those packs, and it looks to me like there's at least 7 more silver cards to craft. But that is not bad from the old expansions. And I only want 1 copy of everything. There's another one to craft. I'm not looking for anything other than that. Just 1 simple copy of every card so I can look at the art. Which arguably, you could probably just find a website that has all the art. If such a website doesn't exist, there's really no reason why it shouldn't exist. And then it would be more expensive, certainly, to start going down the gold route. Yeah. I may have crafted a few of the zero cost gold cards, but there is a considerable number of cards that we haven't crafted, and each one of those is 800 dust. So, yeah, it's still a very far cry away from potentially having 1 of every single gold card, and an extremely far cry away from having 1 of every single platinum card. Yeah, that's just look at the legendary cards in comparison. Now, arguably, there may be fewer legendary cards, so it might be easier to get 1 of every legendary card if you had the vials, but that is the big if. And it certainly is disheartening to potentially come into a game like Shadowverse, which is 3 or 4 years into its whole experience, and then, yeah, we've got no decks that are playable. Even like this temporary deck that I got in the last expansion is not playable. It's ridiculous. Yeah, it's really disheartening to potentially come back and come into a game a little late and realize that the only possible way you're gonna catch up and succeed is if you just started dumping a ridiculous amount of money into it. Forestcraft and Shadowcraft. And then let's see, cards, pre-built deck. We have one ticket where we could buy Forest Ferretcraft, Ramp Dragoncraft, or Wraith Bloodcraft. Forestcraft I think is too easy. Dragoncraft, I don't think I'd play a lot with. I think it makes a lot of sense just to take this now. So that's some new cards, although some of these cards are also kind of old cards. And it kind of feels like by buying that pre-built deck, having things like this did not count as giving us a temporary copy of a basic card. But maybe that's because this is a pre-built deck, yeah, and not a temporary deck. But then that would mean that this is giving us a temporary card and not... Yeah, it doesn't make sense one way or the other. Let's go back and see what this... Yeah, these are pre-built decks. Packed with 5 legendary cards, these pre-built decks are just a thing for for those new to the world of Shadowverse, limited to only one purchase each. Each purchase also comes with a bonus item. What is the bonus items? I guess you have to purchase all 8 of these to get these bonuses. But that's not the pre-built decks we just were looking at either. Yeah, and this is like real world money again. So you only got to pick one and then the whole thing disappears. And then... Let's see. General, I guess. I could probably trade some temporary cards here. Just so I have one. Like if you just have nothing. I mean, you're not really doing a lot with your temporary cards, and seemingly you don't have a lot that you can even purchase with the temporary cards anyway, so you might as well just do that. No, I don't think it makes sense to trade for something you already have 2 of. Or get a 4th. Maybe by getting temporary cards you might increase the odds of getting a regular version of that card. But it then scrolls you back up to the menu. This is one of the things that drives me crazy, is when you click on something and then it scrolls you back up to the top. But yeah, there was still a significant number of cards here that I would have needed to craft, and these are all the same cost, right? 3,500. Seems like that's the case. So it's kind of ridiculous that the price is not just one temporary card ticket. Because, yeah, the price seems to be completely the same. Yeah, and there's really just a ton of temporary cards that you would potentially craft if you need to craft them, but then you don't really want to craft them. And see, this would be where the idea of having 3 or more copies of a card should return the temporary cards and give you those gems back, so you can craft something different. Otherwise, there's very little reason to even play the daily quest to get the temporary gems. Alright, well, we need to modify our forest craft deck. We have solo, new main story, the final loop. I wonder if this is finally going to potentially wrap up the entirety of the story. It'd be weird if it did, but they should be getting close to it. If anything, I think what they're trying to do is wrap up 12, 13, and 14 so that they can get back to this Fate's Trigger ending that killed off the main fairy character, or seemingly killed off the main fairy character. Card pack bundles, purchase included. What is that? Yeah. Yeah. This gives you a bonus too for, I guess, the number of purchases you do, which you could do 10 to give yourself more rewards if you're willing to spend more money. But I've been playing this game for nearly 8 months to a year now, and I have not earned a single premium currency, so you never get any premium currency. Right. Brave Blood Craft, which means we can potentially delete this one, and let's see what we can do as far as Forest Craft. You have destroy an enemy follower and amulet, summon 4 fairies and give them rush. Well, if Fairy Assault is gone, then fairies in general are gone. You can't play that guy anymore? Can't play that guy anymore? Wow, all the good cards are being eliminated here. Okay. Calamity cards. We have to figure out what the new cards are. Give an allied warrior the ability to ignore ward. Enhance, give it +3/+3. Let's see. Restore 1 defense to later, deal 2 damage to a random enemy follower. This one's not too bad. That one didn't look too bad. That sounds interesting. That looks interesting. We'll take one of those. Interesting card. I don't know if that's useful. Got too many cards. Yeah, I don't think that card's worth it. Let's try and get rid of duplicate cards. Like, I don't know if you can even make a proper fairies deck anymore. Yeah, that definitely felt like they have removed the really important cards that would have let you make a fairies deck to actually win with fairies, and now Forestcraft in itself is mascotless. And I don't know if that is an indication of just some internalized hate for Forestcraft. They've killed the main character from the Forestcraft series. They've kind of nerfed Forestcraft. Forestcraft wasn't even particularly successful before this latest expansion. And yeah, we're an hour into the stream and we desperately need to cover the news at least. And this is definitely a different background, much more in line with the cartoon and the Shadowverse for Kids spin-off game or remaster of the game. Yeah, this is honestly, I think, an indication that it is probably less than 2 years from now going to become the case that Shadowverse is just going to become the cartoon-based, anime-based Shadowverse. And honestly, I don't even know if that Shadowverse anime is going to even get a second season. And I think we'll start to see the cards themselves more and more get adjusted and changed.
Mankind's hatred is a curse.
Stay away! No!
So, yeah, let's start covering the video game news. And let's do this.
And those acorns flying out of the woods! Stay away! Stop!
Wither.
So we have an article from Variety here being retweeted by G4. G4 has hired Russell Aarons as president of Gaming and Fandom Network. So there is a real president instead of the fake comedic president of G4 now. And apparently now they are setting this up as G4 coming back as a linear TV and streaming channel. She also worked with Warner Brothers, Machinima, EA, and Mattel. That's a good resume, to say the least. Let's see. It's within Comcast that it was relaunched. They're calling it a guerrilla relaunch announcement, which I guess it was. The thing that I would have to really wonder, though, is let's play.
Who will pardon my sins?
Don't hurt me.
I'm still not 100% sure that G4 is really coming back as a TV channel. I'm not sure if it really needs to come back as a TV channel, and I'm not sure if it really can do something interesting, because so far coming back as just a YouTube streaming channel, it hasn't really recaptured the feel. Yeah, it really hasn't recaptured the feel that you would expect it from a
The forest abandoned me.
from G4.
The hunt has only begun.
As far as the original TV channel went.
Stay away. They're picking on me.
Just don't.
Hey, let's play. Hey, let's play.
There is definitely also a point to make that you can, if you've been watching what Giant Bomb has become now, just a few months past it being acquired by, I think it's Redfin Media that acquired them, Giant Bomb has drastically changed. Like, completely different people, completely different types of content. It is definitely trying to be much more of a lifestyle, a tech geek nerd lifestyle channel. Maybe something closer towards the idea of what Whiskey Media in totality was once going to be, but yeah, it's very much not about video games at all anymore, and that feels weird, to say the least.
I won't let you get away.
No. Hey, let's play.
And I really do have to wonder, now that the main guy who was in charge of Giant Bomb before is out dealing with his child just being born, if he's not going to come back and it's going to be a completely different place, or maybe he's not coming back at all. What about the cards in your hands? Enhance 8. Just gonna end the turn and not do anything, I guess. It says there will be, it says from scripted to unscripted and live streaming content, G4 will offer a diverse slate of programming that is authentic, funny, relevant, and interactive, featuring innovative ways for audiences to socialize and affect programming, which is definitely a more forward-thinking way to run a channel.
This whirlwind is my anger incarnate.
Right.
Give him back.
But yeah. Yeah, it's really questionable whether the G4 is going to work in a modern time. And it's questionable whether G4 can be the new G4, or if Giant Bomb is trying to be the new G4, or if there are hundreds, if not thousands, of other competitors are trying to be the new G4. I mean, even Geek and Sundry and Nerdist all kind of tried to be the new format and the new place for something like that, and it just doesn't seem like it works. In fact, it seems like it fails worse every single time people try it, because there are just considerably fewer people considerably fewer people just even bothering to play watch TV.
Quibble your head, loser.
And so there is definitely this feeling that it is just an older and less relevant generation of viewers every year as far as TV goes. And the gaming community seems to be just spread apart in a lot of places and mostly just focused on playing video games. I don't think the video game fandom goes like heavily to r/gaming on Reddit or watches any specific YouTubers consistently. I mean, we know the biggest one is PewDiePie, but there's plenty of people that don't watch PewDiePie, and there's plenty of people that maybe watch Game Grumps, but plenty of people that don't. There's no like major Twitter feeds or Facebook groups or anything like that everybody is checking out. And if at best, I would say the one place people kind of congregate would be that they maybe get a lot of IGN and GameSpot news, and then they complain online in several different places about how awful the IGN GameSpot news is. The one thing I would say though is G4 should have had already hired Russell Aarons before they even started this launch, and it really feels like they're going backwards and just doing a very bad job of advertising and establishing G4 for whatever it's going to be. And they've sent out a very muddled and confused message as to whether it was going to be a TV channel ever, or whether it was just always going to be a YouTube channel, and who was going to be on it, and who is going to be the figureheads, and what shows are going to be on it. We still don't really know what specific shows they're advertising and pushing,
My quarry won't escape that easy.
other than there are YouTube shows, clearly. Yeah, Kevin Pereira and Adam Sessler clearly should have been, like, if nothing else, they should have been brought in as the co-presidents who hate each other in a WWE style kayfabe attitude, where Kevin Pereira and Adam Sessler are always just contradicting each other and fighting each other, and then they could be their own little personalities and they could have their own shows. And that gives you some prestige on top of that you have Kevin Pereira and Adam Sessler as pretending to be the fake owners of the business, while you have real people really running the show. And that would be a great way also to kind of emphasize that, yeah, Kevin Pereira is going to try and do more just bro culture, funny, comedic stuff, and then Adam Sessler is going to try and do more video game focused content that is perhaps a little bit more critical, but arguably not really that much more critical.
Who's next?
That was delightful.
Video Game Chronicles has an article here. The Marvel Avengers Spider-Man DLC will include cutscenes in the story. This is a PlayStation exclusive content coming later this year for the game Marvel Avengers, not to be confused with the good Spider-Man games. This is the bad Marvel adventure games that I say bad in the sense that most people did not like it, from what I can tell. Hit this.
I paid so much for that axe.
Let's see. Video Games Chronicle says Sony is saying it has interesting, exciting, and fantastic ideas for the future PlayStation 5 system updates. When I look back at the list of things we need to do, there's a lot, says the exec. I think that is true. There is a lot that needs to do, and it would be nice if the system received some updates and that were interesting, exciting, and full of fantastic ideas. At a certain point, though, you don't want to get into the level of Windows 10 or what was it, Vista. Windows Vista in particular was hated because it was designed simply to be this fashion show for the operating system, and it got in the way of
The hunt has only begun.
it got literally in the way of the
Beast is my savior.
actions that needed to actually happen in the actual
Quit while you're
usage.
here, sir. The sunlight is unwelcoming.
Right.
I paid so much for that axe.
But yeah, I'm not sure what specific features, like each feature would have to be announced and talked about and to get a real idea as far as what they're talking about, because it could be very little things. Alright, we have a ton of games, so I'm going to try and burn through these really quick. Here we have one called Elijah and Out of This World,
You have summoned
which
the
is
great
$1.79
invocation.
English only. No. I'm going to just go with no and yes. Maybe I should always do that, frankly. Weather Worn, The Adventure of Pap and Pup, which is $9.99 English, allegedly full audio. No. Here we have a LGBTQ plus NSFW, a sexual content and nudity game called Confessions at Candlewood Lake. So let's come over here and play.
You want to hunt? Be my guest.
I'll see you in
Do
purgatory.
this
Don't forget to snag some merch.
and let's see. This effect is not stackable. No effect. I've never seen an effect that actually is stackable. It's crazy.
I won't
Alright,
let
we'll
you
just
get away.
go back down here.
He's my savior.
You gonna cry?
That was a wasteful way to play, but whatever. So yeah, let me make sure this screenshots are YouTube family friendly. Yeah, they all are. So this looks like this is just a visual novel, and it's an art style, perhaps not one that really grabs my attention a lot. It is more kind of Russian or Western art styles. They all seem like they have just a little too much eye makeup on, and seem to probably be just cut and paste heads on bodies. It doesn't look so terrible that I can just immediately dismiss it. It's $5.59 English only. There's an 18 plus patch, so it's censored. It feels like it is probably set in a world where there are very little men or no men. But yeah. I'll put it on the follow list, see if people like it. I'm not sure if there's really a lot that could be said or done with a game like that, though.
Be my guest.
I can't believe you slapped me!
Let's see. Next, we have a game on Steam called Running Water, which can easily be a no. $8.99 English only. Here we have Blind Postman,
Nice marksmanship.
which I think is fairly easily a no also. Seems like it's maybe a simplistic puzzle game. Maybe you have to program the person to move. It could be a Sokobot box pushing game just being depicted very differently. It's $3.55 and several languages. But yeah. Yeah, it is just a Sokobot box puzzle game with a different way of being depicted. Here we have girls, girls, girls. Girls with a question mark at the end. Is the cross with the circle the female sign? I think it is. Yeah. But then there's a male sign here. So, and the way this is described is four adorable, charming, quote, girls in maid costumes. So, yeah. I'm suspecting that none of these are actually female, biological females, and these are cross-dressers, traps, whatever you want to call them. There almost is a difference that if you're intentionally dressing in something that would present you as female, you're not in the category of a trap as much as a cross-dresser, where a trap is just dressing unambiguously and being mistaken as a female. That would be my idea, certainly, as to differentiate the two. Yep. Cutest boys in skirts you'll ever see. English only, coming soon. Well, I guess we wait until this game actually comes out, but otherwise there's visuals look fine. Looks like a simplistic, your standard visual novel. And there basically is no genre at all, or even thought about like more male dressing females. Yeah, there isn't a lot of demand out there, I guess, for butch dressing females, which might be the wrong way to describe it nowadays, but yeah, females in more male, traditionally male clothing.
Walter, Ranger of the Forest, at your service.
Alright.
Stop it.
Which we probably should have some more visual novels, just for more diversity reasons, like that.
May the forest be at peace.
Hmm.
Stay away.
Yep. Actually, if you look at visual novels as things that are trying to appease certain fetishes, there's plenty of fetishes that are still not really being served. Maybe the audience of people who are interested in those fetishes is too small, or maybe the fetish in itself is just too extreme to be on Steam. But yeah, if you were to go to like Pornhub and look at all the tags on a site like Pornhub and compare it to the tags of all the visual novels on Steam, I think you would find a significant lack of overlapping. Let's see. Yes? I want to play this.
The uncharted desert awaits.
Stay away.
The words escape me.
Don't hurt me.
Next we have a game on Steam called Yamafuda Second Station, which seems to be a card game that also is an RPG walking game. So it seems like your cards are things like zigzag, walk, and drink refreshments, view, stretch, sing. Very like kid-friendly things, and then you're fighting just like stuffed animal type bears. So that's an interesting thought. $12.99 English and Japanese. It has 40 cards, 50 gears, 10 mountains. So it's obviously not going to be that simplistic, that complicated of a game. And if there was a first station version of this game, it's not on Steam from the looks of it. I don't know if you need a game that is this simplistic though. And so that's really where this fall list and getting user feedback would make sense. They're comparing it to Shadowverse, and yeah, I think there's a big difference there. If I did this, and then
Those acorns flying out of the woods.
I do
Stay away.
this,
Hey, no dirty tricks.
and
What do we
then
have here?
that. And then we'll play that.
Let's play. Now's a chance for a grand slam.
Let's see. Here we have a game called Dex Speedrun Level Maker World Records. Looks like a Super Meat Boy clone. Very low effort. $3.59 English only. No. Here we have Trick or Treat Remake, which honestly looks pretty bad. So
Maggot, you
I wonder what the original version of the game looked like. I guess it was just that one screenshot, but that really goes to show how one bad screenshot can just totally change this. Let's see. It's now $1.19, but it's a remake of a free game, which that feels... It's probably fair to ask for money if you remake something, even if the original game was free. So I don't think that's really fair. The first game is overwhelmingly positive. Well, I guess that means what we should do is put the remake on the fall list. If the remake is overwhelmingly positive or positive in general, also, then it will be relevant enough to play it, and we'll check it out at that point, buy it, and then we would spotlight the free version of the game too. That's how I would suppose would be the best way to play that. Okay, so then you play this,
Hey, let's play.
then you do this.
This.
These wheels turn for me. Come at me well.
And he has no
Play
face.
this,
Let's play.
and play this.
Let's play.
Here we have a game that's all Asian characters. Looks like it's a simplistic beat 'em up game, but I'm not sure there actually is any action and you aren't just playing by this
Play.
bar.
Hey, let's play.
It's $3.19 Chinese only, so obviously no. Here we have a game called Attack on Toys, which seems to be a clone of Toy Soldiers, coming out before Toy Soldiers managed to come out. Early access, $4.89, English, allegedly full audio. There's a decent reason to put this on the fall list and see if this would be a better version of Toy Soldiers. Whereas Toy Soldiers is kind of more a tower defense game, if I recall correctly. This looks like it's more of a first-person shooter game, and it's more focused around having multiple types of toys instead of just little plastic army men. Here we have a game called Dungeon Town, which looks like a JRPG. Would I want to play this kind of game, or does this kind of look like something that would be a Game Boy Advance game and fine there? And clearly it's leaning towards having anime girls as a selling spot, sales point. $17.99, Japanese full audio, English and Chinese. I guess I'll give it a follow, but I suspect I would lean towards no on that. Let's see. Evolve for 0 points. Do deal 2 damage.
I'm already a proper lady, you know. Yeah.
Hey, no dirty tricks.
Here we have Lyoko VR. Now Lyoko would be Code Lyoko, the Canadian cartoon from a decade or two ago. That it had kind of a cool story, but the animation itself had some really big-headed characters, and that was just like a weird art style, kind of hard to get around. Kids going into these virtual worlds and fighting a master computer, trying to save this AI program that was trapped inside of it. And yeah, this is apparently a fan-made version of showing what the world would look like in the game. Yeah, after I guess the main story happened. But yeah, they're not really showing you the characters because those are probably copyrighted. $4.99, English only. They're mentioning Code Lyoko animated series, and they're saying it's after the final episode of season 4, which maybe that isn't the exact end of the
Beautiful flowers in this direction.
story. I didn't watch the cartoon enough to know.
Let's play.
Code Lyoko, like most Saturday morning cartoons, really suffered in the original airings. That you would have to come back week after week, and often you come back one week just to be given filler episode after filler episode. Whereas nowadays, watching something like Code Lyoko on Netflix would be a slightly better experience, but probably would also just highlight a lot of problems of the weekly type of content that was being released.
Beautiful flowers in this direction.
Pokemon, Digimon, same case, where if you edited out all the filler content, you could easily take a season down to 3 or 4 episodes. I imagine Lyoko VR though
Let's play.
will get content ID then copyrighted. Well, copyrighted. There's no content ID system on Steam, and taken down via the DMCA. It's English full audio, $4.99. I guess I want to put that on the fall list just to see if it's still around in 6 months, more than anything else. Okay.
This whirlwind is my anger incarnate.
6,
Give him back.
which means if we hit that,
Is
and
that
then
how you
that,
treat a lady? You fairies are the best.
and then that. Probably the best way to play. Here we have a game called As Magnet, which the art outside of the game looks way better than the art inside the game. It's just a box pushing Sokobon game. $6.39, English and Japanese. That's a no. Here we have a game called Rekindle, which is a Sokobon game too, but it looks a little bit better polished than most. So can I make an excuse for this? I mean, it does definitely look like more of a game. It's free. It's English and Chinese. Oh, I guess I don't even need to put it on the fall list then. If Rekindle a Robot Adventure looks interesting to you, play it. It's free. That's all I have to say. Move on. Here we have a game called Unity Invaders, which is just a Space Invaders clone. Free to play, English, allegedly full audio. No to that. I don't think I'm going to get any victories here with the Forest Craft at this rate. Here we have a game called Lucky Thehalowas Cybernetic Titan. I don't even know how you'd pronounce that word. I don't even know what language that is. Regardless, it looks like a ugly first-person shooter asset flip game. Maybe not even an asset flip. English and Chinese. No to that. Selling for $10.99. Here we have Archstone and the Zombie Specters, which it's probably an asset flip first-person shooter. 99 cents. English only. Let's watch, I guess, a little bit of the video and see if maybe we can get a better idea. Yeah, there's just no visual polish on this to get that on the fall list, so that's a no. Here we have a game called A Better, which looks like a top-down twin-stick shooter. Free, English only, no to that. Here we have Avoidvania, which top-down runner Metroidvania, it says. Yeah, that sounds like a very uninteresting gameplay mechanic though, where you have to constantly just avoid taking damage. Yeah. That kind of just makes it feel like you've taken a more Zelda-like than anything. I wouldn't call this a Metroidvania looking game. Which I guess at a certain point maybe some of the Zelda games are Metroidvania games. Regardless, this is French only, $9.89, so I guess I don't really have to make a decision there, so I'll just say no to that since I can't speak French. Let's see. I guess you could do that. Here we have a game on Steam called Cubicus 2, which I feel like Cubicus 1 may have come out just a couple days ago, and this still doesn't look interesting regardless of when the first game came out. $1.19 English and Russian. That's a no. Here we have a game called Rose Blight. It's RPG about gardening with dark secrets and cosmetic past. It seems like it's too much of a joke game for its own good. It's tagged as an exploration Metroidvania bullet hell RPG for $6.39 English only. Let's see. Okay. So you do this, I guess,
Quit while you're ahead, loser.
and then you fuse this. Yeah, I don't think Rose Blight is just visually polished enough. It seems like it's got a lot going for it, and it doesn't feel like it really is a low effort game. It looks like somebody actually put some effort into it. It's just what came out, it doesn't really visually appeal to me. Here we have coloring pixel fantasy characters. This is just a coloring game, paint by number. $1.99 English only. No to that.
Woodland Fortress at 12 o'clock.
Let's see. Next, we have a game on Steam called Nero, which looks like it's a first-person shooter. It looks like it might be alright. There's actual cutscenes, which that's kind of shocking. Amaric Lanka Private Limited. I feel like I've heard of that publisher before, but I couldn't tell you what they did. But yeah. This really does look like a game. $19.99 English only. Gotta go on the follow list. What did this developer make before? Apparently nothing. Let's see. Next we have a nudity, sexual content, mature for My Dream Girls. So let's make sure that's YouTube family friendly first. This.
The uncharted desert awaits.
And then this.
We doing this? Gotta
And
report
then
this
that.
lickety split.
Some of the pictures are blurred, but otherwise it's pretty YouTube family friendly. And looking at the blurry pictures, it does look like this is really just a collection of anime girls that they found somewhere. Maybe they licensed it properly, maybe they didn't, to make jigsaw puzzles after. Just your standard jigsaw puzzle fare, selling for 74 cents. Allegedly full audio in all languages that it supports, and allegedly supporting all those languages. Like, when you get down to like some of the games that are actually well received as far as adult content, and you start to see these suggestions, there's just a huge gap in the difference as far as what people actually are playing and actually wanting. Subverse is a pretty big different game in general, but compared to these low effort jigsaw puzzle games, like I'm sorry, for lack of a better term, perverts looking for lewd anime girl pictures are not interested in doing jigsaw puzzles. And jigsaw puzzle fans in general are not interested in seeing anime girl pictures or cat pictures or dog pictures. They want generally nice artistic pictures, usually of landscapes. Let's see.
You gotta report this
This.
lickety split.
The hunt has only begun.
So yeah, that's definitely a no. Here we have a game on Steam called Merge Chess, which seems to be it's not really chess at all. It's just that 2048 game where you just put the two pieces together to make copies. The only difference is because you're limiting yourself to the 12 or 13 pieces that are available on the chessboard, and honestly, you're probably limiting yourself closer to 5 pieces, 6 pieces, I guess. See, pawns, knights, bishops, queen, king, rook. Yeah, that's 6 pieces. Yeah, that means you're not even getting. You're getting 2 to the power of 6, which is less than 64. Yeah, that 2 to the power of 6 is 64, so you're getting considerably lower as far as the highest number you can even reach. So it's just a bad idea in general. The only thing I guess that's slightly different is you have different colors, so maybe the different colors mean something. Could get you from 6 to 12, which would get you
My quarry won't escape that
get you
easy.
maybe the 2048, but that's about it.
Fairies.
And even 2048, in some instances of that game coming out, actually just stopped the player once they reached 2048. They didn't want you to just go up for higher and higher numbers. Plus, I think there probably was a mathematical reason why you couldn't. You were very unlikely, or it was just impossible to potentially get much higher than 2048. And I think there definitely were times when it was impossible to even get to 2048. Let's see. Next, we have a game on Steam called Lovely Animal Stories, which, yeah, seems like it's just a too simplistic kids game. Just solid color backgrounds, very little drawing and animation. Seems to be just general square puzzle games. $1.69, bunch of languages for 20 to 30 minutes of entertainment. That is an incredibly low amount of entertainment for that price. Even for free, it's a pretty low amount. Here we have a game called League Space, which looks like it's just an asset flip first-person shooter in space. $11.99 third-party account linking towards just a weird URL, and then third-party EULA for online PvP. I wonder if these kinds of links have been vetted or not, because this really just seems like it is taking you straight to an ad from Google Ad Services. Yeah. That does not look like an actual game. Odd form-fitting, like, skin suit here with these lines, definitely emphasizing a very odd, like, V shape on what looks like a female body. Maybe not.
How about a crank?
It shows how in fashion in particular this, well, they're saying this is Jefferson. This is not a good way. Vertical lines or V-shaped lines. It's probably not going to be a good decision fashion-wise.
Mankind's hatred is a curse.
So that's a no. Here we have a game called Zero Survival, which is already mixed, so we can pretty much say no to it already. It's probably an MMO online game that doesn't really work. Free to play, MMO, third party EULA. Yep. And a whole bunch of languages supposedly supported. We have Crom Journey of Conquest, which looks like MS Paint level graphics. 13.49, that's too expensive. English only, that's a no. Here we have the Handler of Dragons, which looks like nothing. Early access 10.19, English only. Can we play a bunch of stuff?
Don't hurt me.
Wither.
Hey, let's play.
Go ahead and play for now,
Hey,
fairies.
let's play.
Video Game Chronicles has an article. Halo Infinite players are destroying each other with a super punch glitch. An infamous melee exploit that was returned from previous games. Okay, well, I guess. I guess there's maybe some way you can smash the melee button to do a lot of melee damage. Or otherwise glitch it. That'd be my assumption that as to how all that would work.
The forest abandoned me.
Stay away.
I think you owe me an apology.
There we go.
Wither.
Do we want to play that now? Probably.
Play.
Let's see. Video Game Chronicle says the Switch's Nintendo 64 controller has extra buttons. A promo image reveals more details on the Switch Online controller. So, yeah, instead of having a connector or a wire,
You are.
it's obviously going to be wireless.
Better than in the cradle.
Excuse me, sorry about that.
You
I should have muted myself there. From the look of it, it seems like there's 4 LED indicators that say you could connect 4 of these to the Switch, which makes sense. One of the things about the Bluetooth update that they just came out with seems to be the case that it actually is
Already a proper lady.
impossible to connect a Bluetooth headphones to a Switch unit and have a have 4 Bluetooth Joy-Cons connected at the same time. It seems to limit you down to like 2 Joy-Cons if you want to use the Bluetooth headphones, which in most scenarios that would be fine, but that is a weird limitation and does kind of highlight that they did not design it to have Bluetooth audio connectivity ever.
Mankind's hatred.
But yeah,
Shadowverse.
looking at the top of this, it seems like there's probably inset connectors here just in case you would ever attach something to it. I don't know what. There seems to probably be a menu button and a home button and a sync button and 4 lights to sync it. And then there's a Z right button way at the top here. And this looks like a USB connectivity for charging it. USB-C. And this may very well be a microphone for like Hey You Pikachu at some point. Or it might be a reset hole. Because I have wonder. The ZL button is probably considered that one. And yeah, or there's, I guess, a question about whether you really would have to plug in memory cards or rumble packs. That would be kind of crazy if you did plug in rumble cards, rumble packs.
Farewell.
The hunt has only begun.
Say goodbye. Your time
Is that how you treat a lady?
Come on. Barely made that in time. Let's see. They're saying that the Genesis are also going to have buttons added. Yeah, I feel like this hole here is the more interesting thing, and these connectors on the back are the more interesting thing. And then you have a home button and a back menu button and a start button.
and those acorns.
But generally, I still feel like it's kind of stupid and ridiculous to buy the Nintendo 64 controller at all, or the Genesis controller. I think the Joy-Cons are just as good, if not slightly better, than these older controllers. If they aren't better, then that just is a statement as to how bad Nintendo has handled the evolution of its own controllers over the decades.
Quit while you're ahead, loser.
Video Game Chronicles also says Bayonetta 3 is being directed by Scalebound's designer and could, and quote, could share a feature. Scalebound's former lead producer thinks Bayonetta's new demon feature looks familiar. Which, okay, that would make a lot of sense that somebody had an idea. It was at least somewhat liked. And they've decided to take it to the next project they're working on. Scalebound was announced too early and then very publicly canceled by Microsoft. So that may have actually hurt Microsoft's interactions with Japanese companies more than they expected it
I
to.
won't let you get away.
Because Japanese companies tend to always publish a game even if it turns out to be awful. And that once they commit to something, they actually do put out something close to a finished product. Scalebound obviously was too ambitious of an idea in the first place. Moving on, Video Games Chronicle has here's the first official photo from the Last of Us series. So, okay. You got the back of the head of one character, the back of the head of another character, their backpacks, their outfits. Looks fairly similar to Last of Us 1. Not really surprised by this. I imagine they did the back of the heads to show off the outfits and the backpacks and to make it feel like a video game, but also to not particularly commit to the faces of actors or the makeup on the actors yet. But I'm not expecting any kind of like bait and switch where it turns out the people announced to be the actors turn out to not be the actors, and in the first episode you're actually following a completely different group of people. Or like the show itself is actually not focused on the main characters that you would expect it to focus on.
Stop it.
You broke the curse?
You shall fall.
There we go. Video Games Chronicle says October's PlayStation Plus games have reportedly been revealed early. Let's see what they think it's gonna be. Looks like
There's no need to be shy.
October's free listings will be Hell Let Loose for the PlayStation 5, Mortal Kombat X for the PS4, and PGA Tour 20 2K21 for the PS4. Which, yeah, it's not particularly that interesting, a list of games.
The word escaped me.
Stop it! There goes me wheel.
Looks like I'm gonna lose here once again.
Let's play.
Video Game Chronicles says data mine reveals that Halo Infinite is full of memes, fan uncovers emblems, weapon charms, armor effects, and more from the technical preview. So, yeah, it seems like there's a whole collection of meme images, which maybe those are actually going to be in the game, or maybe they are just temporary placeholders. I wouldn't be surprised if they are just temporary placeholder images for content that won't be available until the actual game is out. Video Game Chronicle says Naughty Dog says it will reveal its Last of Us multiplayer game when it's ready. The development is currently in full swing. Okay, good for it. I don't really see a reason to go any further down that article, though. Like somebody saying, yeah, we'll reveal it when we're good. Looks like Gematsu has changed its website appearance, and so the ads are somewhat back. Blossom Tales 2, The Minotaur Prince, has been announced for the Switch and PC. So let's see what Gematsu looks like when there's no ad blocking at all turned on. With the current zoom and everything, it doesn't look terrible, but there's a decent amount of stuff that is still kind of in the way. So I'll have to work on fixing that fixing the ad blocking later. Record of the Lotus War Deed Leighton Wonderland Parenth is coming to the PS5, Xbox Series, PS4, Xbox One, and Switch on December 16th. Which, okay. It's coming to more places. Let's see. This is the one that's kind of a Castlevania game. And honestly, I wonder if the re-release of Castlevania games as a collection were inspired or counter-programmed, as it were, to fight against this game more than anything else. But yeah, I think there's a very good reason why you would want to potentially play this versus just the old Castlevania games, particularly if you don't have nostalgia for the old Castlevania games. See, next we have a Chinese game that looks like a cell phone port of some kind of Chinese horror game. And it does have an interesting art style. You have blindfolded, creepy lady. But I bet it doesn't support English. And the perspective and angle is just totally wrong. And the whole thing here is when you make a game nowadays, you're going to have to make things that are just in a tall mode, portrait mode, and landscape mode. You're just going to have that always in the back of your head. Or at the very least, make it widescreen and then only put the important content in the portrait version. so you can crop the size if you need to put it on a cell phone. This is obviously Chinese only, so I can't go any further with that game. Here we have a game called Peach's Pirate, which looks like it's just a Peach Leaf Pirates is what it's called. Yeah. Looks too pixely. Looks like it's just a Stardew Valley clone. English only. Coming soon.
Don't hurt me. Stay away.
Here we have a game on Steam called Friends of Little Yes, which looks like it's just a platformer, free to play, English only. Check it out if you're interested. Here we have a game called Memories of Loneliness, which, yeah, it's $5.99, English only. Looks to just be a walking simulator horror game, for lack of a better term. Does not seem like there's actual gameplay here. I saw some gameplay of that game, Tormented Souls, and it definitely plays and looks a lot like the original Resident Evil game. Which, that might work. It might not.
Stay away.
I have done the gods' bidding.
Stay away.
So this only gives you 2 fairies instead of
Let's play.
4.
Let's play.
Here we have a game on Steam called Lousy, which doesn't look like anything.
Tail and ran.
Some kind of weird puzzle game with very weird visuals. 99 cents English and Russian. That's a no. Here I have a game called Try to Catch Up, which looks like a very simplistic puzzle, a platforming game, not puzzler. Single player, English only, $4.79. That's way too expensive. Here we have Human Madness, which just looks like a first-person shooter asset flip game, if I was to guess. Early access, $9.59. English, allegedly full audio. Single player with online PvP. And it's tagged as a battle royale. Multiplayer survival game. Yeah, that's a no for me. GameDeveloper.com says Good Old Games has warned users over review bombing after a hitman sparks DRM row. I guess that's the word you would use as row.
Stay away.
I'll be back for
Oh,
round
so
2.
2 of these would mean you can use it twice. Okay. 1, 2. And then 1.
Let's play.
Quote, we will not tolerate review bombing and will remove posts that do not follow our review guidelines. And see, yep, this feels like this is the next step of the idea of the concept of review bombing being really a thing that anybody should be concerned with, and with the idea that any game developer can potentially accuse bad reviews of being fake news, for lack of a better equation, and then successfully getting reviews removed or ignored. Like, it is 100% within the norm for reviews of products to be fairly disgruntled and crazy. It's not unheard of to see reviews on Steam for products that obviously were written by either people that were trolling, or competitors selling a different product, or just insane people in general. Caveat emporium, buyer beware, really does not work if all of a sudden the seller can control the narrative even more than they already do. And Good Old Games has always been on the idea of no DRM, and kind of like no DRM, open source, or free use of the products you purchase, actual ownership of the products, and not really, but it's very weird to all of a sudden have Good Old Games say be on the side of DRM.
Pay thy reverence. Heaven demands it.
Good Old Games has specifically positioned itself as a place to shop for DRM-free games, which means they can be played offline. Some of the users pointed out, however, Hitman Game of the Year Edition requires an internet connection to access certain features like escalation missions or elusive targets. Despite this, Good Old Games is falsely advertising the game as DRM free, and notes that there's no activation or online connection required to play, which there obviously is for some parts of it. And that this is one way that they've added online elements to games to then also have the justification of having DRM run in the background. Now, arguably, maybe there actually is no true code in the Game of the Year edition of Hitman that is digital rights management, and perhaps this is a argument of people being upset for required online to play certain content, but it almost certainly is not that case, because at the core of it, almost certainly no game server is going to just allow you to connect without verifying that you're using a proper and secured and hopefully encrypted connection version of their software. So there is a check there to say that this is the proper piece of software, and in that check, almost certainly there's a check there to say that this software and this license, a license, does exist and somebody actually did buy the game. In the sense that there almost certainly is a check to say stop people from playing a cracked version of their game online.
Quit while you're ahead, loser. I wasn't good enough.
Ironically, the message is displayed directly alongside another that explains internet connections required to access escalation missions, elusive targets, or other user-created tracks. Storing bonus missions can be played offline. And now they're saying that's a review bomb, when that, even if you are going to believe the idea that the phrase review bomb should even be used, that's not really a review bomb. That's a legitimate complaint about the legitimate element of the game. That's not a review bomb. Review bombs were supposed to be like Red Candle's game being bombed because an artist slipped in some anti-Chinese president propaganda. Like, that has nothing to do with the content of the game for the most part. Even in that instance, it really isn't a good example. A better example of a review bomb would be the creator of a game went and donated money to, like, the Donald Trump presidency. Then it got bombed because of an action taken by somebody related to the game that has nothing to do with the actual content of the game. That's a much better example of review bombing. In this case, people are upset about the actual content in the game.
You have summoned the blade of
Yeah.
purgation.
So, yeah. Review bombing at this point has just become the next buzz phrase that, for lack of a better word, social justice warriors, or just people who are looking to look like they're smarter than they really are, are using.
You want to hunt? Be my guest.
And
See you in
when any of these buzz phrases start coming up,
It has only begun.
it's gotten down to the point where you should just roll your eyes and not listen to people who use those kinds of phrases, because it's just unacceptably ridiculous. I guess you hit this,
My melody set your wings free.
then you hit that, and then you hit that. The Plague Indie Creations, creators of Plague Inc. and Rebel Inc., are hiring. So, we're looking for game designer, junior games designer, producer, senior producer, programmer, and junior programmer. So, that would probably indicate that they're scaling up to make a new game. Here we have a game on Steam called Nightmare Less Origins, which... Lay Origins? Is that French? I would think it would be Los if it was Spanish. Regardless, it looks like a low effort horror game. $10.59, French only. So yeah, it was French. Here we have a game on Steam called Wager, which we can pretty much say no to. Early access for $4.49, English only. Gamatsu has a Resident Evil VR launching October 24th, exclusively for the Oculus Quest 2. One would only hope that this RE4 for the Oculus Quest is getting released in a rush fashion, kind of, so that we can be that much closer towards the true Resident Evil 4 remake that we're all hoping for, or remaster. I'm not sure if we really want more of a remake or a remaster. Otherwise, this feels like they are falling back to old habits, Capcom, and re-releasing Resident Evil 4 yet again for the 20th time, and teasing or delaying the idea that it ever would actually get a proper remake or re-release.
And so our pact is finished.
Here we have a game on Steam called Festival Tycoon, which just looks like a festival management game. Early access $9.99, English, German, Spain, Spanish. Let's see. PlayStation Blog has Horizon Forbidden West involving Alloy. Seems like what they've come back and done after the kind of ridiculous pushback that a lot of people did for against people complaining about the way Alloy looked in the first presentation of her and the first announcement and pictures of her, making her look very swollen and, for lack of a better term, masculine. Seems after all the pushback and going, no, you guys are just a bunch of perverts and you just want all the females to look pretty so you can masturbate to them. It's like, after all those lol what responses, which I guess is the best way to describe them as, what does Guerrilla Games come back and do? And they fix the visuals, because obviously it was a mistake in the first place, and they, instead of just admitting it was a mistake, they let other people push a narrative that that people were being ridiculous for wanting the character to look like the way she looked in the past game and wanting a character to look good in general. And there are paranoid theories that I'm not sure I 100% believe that there might be actual pushes amongst SJW game developers to have less feminine looking people and like androgynize all the characters that are being depicted. That is an accusation that was made even like 100 years ago, that some people were being depicted different ways, and that was a push and a conspiracy. And it feels a little too conspiratorial, but I think there is something to it. I think when you're an SJW and you're a game developer and you are going to speech after speech and seeing article after article about how women need more realistic body proportions, I think it's very easy as an individual to take that message and take it to mean that women should be depicted fatter, less feminine, less realistically even sometimes. It's not like Alloy was outside of being anatomically correct in the first game. She looked very realistic. And so now you can see in this, while there may still be some bone structure issues, and I think that's really where this comes down to, is that they're depicting her face using actual bone structure, and I think somebody just messed up horribly in the programming of that. But they've come back to adjust it, and she looks much closer to the original game. It does kind of feel like they're moving towards a new engine. Otherwise, it would have been more copy and paste. And see, even in this, she still kind of looks a little fat, but not anywhere as bad as some of the other images that were going around originally. And arguably, with her neck turned this much, it's a little weird. But even if you look at her arms, though, her arms are kind of a little too skinny. I wonder if half of these images weren't straight up just photoshopped and doctored. Yeah, maybe for the story she should be really skinny and starving, but yeah, this face has way too much blubber on it for an arm that is that skinny. Even now, this looks fine. Yeah, and so they're probably not trying to say it directly, but these images definitely make it look way better. If anything, I think, though, if they're still going with kind of a somewhat plump face, and it's not really even fat, it's just a little plump, I think they need to try to get the BMI a little bit closer on the arms, and probably legs. And she's got a lot of clothing over her chest and stomach and stuff, which makes it feel like she's basically has no cleavage and no fat on her chest, no fat on her stomach. You've got even a bit of an hourglass shape here. There probably should even be more muscles, considering she's shooting bows and fighting that much. It definitely feels like you have maybe a slightly more realistic depiction of somebody with a chubby face on top, and then you have a anatomically incorrect, almost skin and bones character below. She looks better in her arms this way, but then her arms are covered up, and you still have a case of an hourglass face, and there's just so much padding here, you just don't know if there's any fat there. Yeah. And that might be part of the problem too, is that they've established Aloy as being kind of an incredibly skinny character in the first game, and so it's a shift, as you would see just like in any friend. If a friend all of a sudden gained a huge amount of weight in their face, you would notice it, to say the least. And storyline wise, if they're going to the west, they could just say it's colder in that area, or the food is more fatty, or she ate better as she was traveling to build up energy for the travels. They could straight up say she became pregnant, and that would explain a lot too.
Stop it.
Of course, all of that really won't matter much if the game never comes out, or if the game is not worth playing. So those are factors that also has to be considered. Let's see if we can play this.
And those acorns flying out of the woods.
The hunt has only begun.
First MVP. Hey, let's
see.
play. There's a chance for a grand slam. Home run.
Moving on, Video Games Chronicle says Xbox has made it easier to run emulators on the Series X and S. The updated web browser bypasses developer mode requirement. Interesting. So, these would be browser-based versions of emulators, which probably run, relatively speaking, slower than native-based ones.
I'll get it right this time.
Okay.
I won't let you get away.
Let you go.
I'll be back for round
Why is
two.
this so hard?
Let's see. Here we have a game on Steam. It's just a bunch of Asian characters. Looks like an RPG maker.
Nice marksmanship.
99 cents Chinese only. Here we have a game called Megaki 26. First person shooter. Looks like garbage. Free. English only. That's a no. Let's see. I think we'd already talked about this, but GameDeveloper.com says Microsoft has tapped Crystal Dynamics to co-develop the Perfect Dark reboot. If anything, this is probably an indication of what a small amount of news that GameDeveloper.com has talked about over the weekend. They have just not reported anything, so they took the weekend off. Now, I almost want to suggest that GameDeveloper.com is intentionally not posting any new articles if they're not interested in pushing a narrative with that article, because they basically are always pushing one or two narratives amongst a group of maybe 3 or 4 narratives in all their articles anyways. And if there's just no new news where they can poop on Activision Blizzard or Ubisoft, or just in general talk about abuse in game companies, or pro unionization propaganda type stuff. They really don't have anything to say. And that is, I'm attributing a lot to GameDeveloper.com simply in the fact that they didn't report on anything this week, but seems to be a fairly accurate description of what they do. And generally, that is kind of the problem with anybody who's obsessed about anything, including myself. Sometimes I am just doing the same rants over and over again, is that it gets fairly boring fairly fast, and it's pretty easy to dismiss people if they are just saying the same thing over and over again. And the irony of that is, if somebody is saying the same thing over and over again that really needs to be said and really needs to be heard, and people are just not willing to listen to it, then it's not like the person is wrong for repeating themselves, or the person is wrong for being ignored. Some things, sometimes the only thing you can do is just repeat yourself and say what needs to be said, even if nobody's listening. For historical reference, no, I told you so's later. Moving on, we have a game on Steam called Solo Royale, which just looks like an asset flip garbage game. Early access, $4.49, English only. Video Game Chronicles has an interesting article here. Gorilla says Horizon Forbidden West will offer, quote, an equally immersive experience on the PS4 and PS5. Studio also discusses how Alloy evolved since Horizon Zero Dawn. I don't like that idea, generally. I think you should have a more immersive and better experience with the PlayStation 5. If anything, all they're really telling you is that this was a game made for the PS4, and it's going to look like PS4 level graphics and content, and the PlayStation 5 version of it is not going to improve your experience. Like in this trailer, watching her hair bounce up, there is some physics that are kind of bad on her hair. It seems like it's not as natural as it can be. See, that was probably the old trailer that was being depicted there. But maybe that was the new trailer, and they've made it so that they're just not focusing on her face. Which, in all fairness, when you actually play the game, you're not really going to be looking at her face for the main gameplay loop. You're going to be looking at the back of her head. Which, yeah. Let's see. Next, we have a game on Steam called How to Bathe Your Cat, which looks like one of those YouTube ad puzzle games where you have to divert water and lava. If this is probably like the first one of these I've actually seen on Steam, which goes to show how ads for things or games that look like they would be popular seem to take an incredible amount of time to be ripped off. Because, yeah, these kinds of ads had been coming out for like nearly a year and a half ago. Generally, though, this is mostly a black background and just emptiness, so it's not a game worth really considering. 79 cents, English, allegedly full audio. Here we have a game called Go Home, Mr. Fisk, which doesn't look like anything of interest. Free, English and Japanese.
It's all the same to me.
Komatsu has an article here that Code Vein shipments and digital sales have topped 2 million, which really is a sad statement because they're reaching this 2 years after the release. Code Vein was supposed to be the next Dark Souls. It was designed to be the next Dark Souls game, but it was too anime and had too much of a vampire-focused story, and it was completely ignored by Western video game journalism. So, yeah. That was what happened to end up putting the whole Code Vein game not really covered or played by many people. And yeah, at some point I may get around to playing Code Vein, but I'm not sure there is even enough relevancy because the damage has been done. It should be 2 years into the game, closer to 3 or 4 million units sold, not 2 million. Meanwhile, other Japanese games, JRPG games, have come and gone, such as that are more relevant and more worth a play through. Here we have a game on Steam called Alone Recode, which looks like it's mostly just a 8-bit RPG type game. $4.79, English only, allegedly full audio. That's a no. Here we have Matanga 2, which I think this is just a horror walking simulator. Probably an asset flip game. Also, I feel like Matanga 1 came out just a couple of weeks ago, and it's another example of just people flooding the storefronts. $3.99, English and Russian. Here we have a game called Horror Legends, which looks like it might be an attempt at something like the Friday the 13th game. It's an asymmetrical player versus nightmare game. It's not the Friday the 13th one that was really successful. This is $9.74, English, allegedly full audio. Dead by Daylight, I think, is the successful version of that. Hunt Showdown may also be one. I desperately need to get around to playing Resident Evil 7. Yep. I think we'll probably have a fairly quick second Halloween month as far as content, because yeah. As for Horror Legends, I guess I put it on the fall list just in case there's something there, but then it's really an online PvP game also, so take it off the fall list because of that reason. But check it out if it interests you, I suppose. And I guess the real question here is, consider if it interests you a month after October happens, because that would be the real question. Is it a flash in the pan type game? We have Grim Tales Crimson Hollows Collector's Edition from Big Fish Games, another hidden object game. $8.99, English only. That's cheaper than most Big Fish game listings. Here we have a game called Me vs. You, which I think we can say no to immediately. $14.39, English and German. That's way too expensive. Here we have a game called One Way to Exit 2, which looks like it's just a cheap physics falling game. English, 99 cents. Hey, we are closer to the end than I thought we were. I guess not that many games came out really over the weekend, and things are just kind of slowing down. But also, I'm looking at the timer, and it has been 2 hours and 40 minutes, so I think I've finally just slept enough where I'm starting to now lose track of time a lot more and not feeling exhausted and tired and just yawning in the first 5 minutes of a stream. Because yeah, this does feel like you're like I just blinked and we covered most of the news. Now, arguably, maybe that's because of this new experimental system I'm doing, where I'm just saying no to things very quickly. But yeah, so that might just be a really good turn of events for me. If every stream is a blink and you're done type scenario, that would be great. So we have like 3 more pieces of news. Life is Strange Remastered Collection launches February 1st, 2022 for the PC, PS4, Switch, and Xbox One, according to Gamatsu. Kerbal Space Program Enhanced Edition for the PS5 and Xbox Series is now available, according to Gamatsu. And the Art of Rally for PS5 and PS4 launches October 6th, which maybe there's more of a game there than I thought there was.
It looks like I'm up.
I guess theoretically I should do the single player content on Shadowverse, and maybe I'll do that but off screen, but I don't think so. I think I'll just make other content instead. Here's Art of Rally. It is overwhelmingly positive in the last 30 days and very positive overall. Guess there's just enough of a reason here to put it on the wish list. Just skip the fall list completely. Here we have a game on Steam called Fatal Error, which looks like nothing. $8.99 English, allegedly full audio. Here we have a game called Super Chicken Jumper, which looks like it's kind of a joke game. Just doesn't look particularly interesting. $4.99 English, Portuguese, Brazil. Here we have a game called Slayers Inc., which looks like a top-down hack and slash game, but too zoomed out and the graphics kind of look bad. $9.99 English only. This will probably be our last game for today.
The forest abandoned me.
Quit while you're ahead, loser.
Here we have a game called Magic Time on Steam, which just looks like a generic platformer. $5.99 English only. I think that's a no. Here we have a game called Meow and Dash, which looks like you're a cat bouncing balls all around.
In the cradle.
And different balls touch different colors. It's probably player versus player. $4.99. Split screen PvP, otherwise just single player. They want $4.49. English, allegedly full audio. I don't think there really is much of a game here. Yeah, it feels like this is also one of these games that controls with the mouse more than anything else. And those types of games tend to not really work.
Don't forget to snag some merch.
They don't control particularly well. Here we have a game called Teacup, which
Check out my fancy
seems like it is a very basic story slash puzzle game, kind of adventure game.
Hard way.
Kind of kid friendly would be my guess.
Longs for the passionate beat.
$9.99, bunch of languages. I'll put this on the follow list because this does look unique. It might not be relevant and it might not be that good, but I need some player feedback to figure that out. Here we have a game called Flisty Fuffs, which I assume would just be cats fighting each other. Which at a certain point, aren't you just then dog fighting? Making a dog fighting simulator? Yeah, I don't know if I really would appreciate playing a game like that. Like, it looks too realistic. Or a depiction of real world cats fighting each other, which they do a lot of that from what I've seen. But that doesn't inherently mean that I want to play a game that simulates that. Let's see. Warhammer 40k Space Marine Anniversary Edition is, I guess, maybe on sale or something. I don't know why I ended up on this page. I guess it's on sale for $20.39, and at some point I owned it. I wonder if it was free. I'm not sure I'd ever actually get around to playing any of the Warhammer 40k games because the vast majority of them suck. This is like kind of the only one that people seem to like. And then there's a Sega Discovery sale. Let's check out that. Bayonetta and Vanquish for $8.99. Pretty good deal there. Not sure if I don't own Vanquish. Shenmue for $7.50. Sonic Mania for $4.99. Wouldn't mind owning Sonic Mania. Give me an excuse to potentially run through a lot of Sonic games and try and play them for the first time in my life. Deadly Tower of Monsters. I think that was a decent game. For $2.99, it's almost certainly worth it. And that's going to be the case for a lot of these games. Shining Resonance Refrain for $8.99 is a much more reasonable price. Xenoclash for $2.99 is a much more reasonable price. Not a lot of games being listed here though for the sale, unless something more is being hidden from me.
I'm already a proper lady, you know.
Yes, turn off the ad blocking and reload the page just to see if anything more was supposed to be shown. Nope. So, decent sales. But the only way to see any more is to click this bar that's white on white, and that's why I didn't see it. Yakuza 3 for $14.99 is probably worth it. See. 2 Foot Hospital. The Club for $3.74 is questionable. Space Channel 5 Part 2, $1.19. Can you get Part 1? That's a question, certainly. Persona 4 is this actually published by Sega? $13.99. It's a bit of a discount. Persona 4 Golden. Catherine for $7.59 is probably worth it. Depending on if you like that kind of puzzling. Citizens of Space is mixed. Let's see. Is there anything else that's really jumping out? I wouldn't want to get Rock of Ages 2 because I didn't like Rock of Ages 1. 2 Points Hospital for $11.89. I guess I don't own Vanquish for $4.99. So, yeah. Still not really a lot of Not a lot of games being promoted here. But this is probably the closest and best time that you would have Japanese games, or Sega games in particular, promoted, as the Tokyo Game Show is about to happen. I did not get a single victory today, which I guess I should have halfway through this just started playing unranked. Alright, we have about 20 more pages of games. Let's just burn through them all. Here we have one on Steam called Dad's Monster House, which looks creepy, looks like a different type of art style. They're calling it an RPG puzzle 2D platformer. It kind of feels more like a point and click adventure game to me. Yeah. $2.99. Bunch of languages. We'll put that on the follow list. Here we have a game called Find Match Icons, which I think we can immediately dismiss. $5.99 English only. Here we have Haos, H-A-O-S, which looks just like a bunch of neon colors for a top-down space shooter. Asteroids clone. $4.24 English, allegedly full audio. I guess it's slightly different from an Asteroids clone in the fact that there are barriers and walls and environments you're flying around. Here we have a game called Element Towers, which is just a tower defense game. Doesn't look much like a lot of the other tower defense games, but it's still just a tower defense game. Early access, $11.04. I don't know why you need to be early access in the category of tower defense. That should raise some red flags. Here we have Dungeon Danger Traps on Steam, which I feel like we'd already seen a game like this. Infinite runner and jumper avoiding incredibly dangerous traps. Doesn't feel like enough of a game there. $2.59 English only. Yeah. This is the kind of stuff that you would expect to see in the Tomb Raider reboot, with all of the story and still the hunting and the first person shooting and the other gameplay elements that were in the Tomb Raider reboot games. And if anything, particularly the first Tomb Raider reboot game, that there really wasn't any deadly traps or puzzles or anything. As a standalone experience, though, this is nothing. Here we have a game called Rhythm of the Universe Ionia, which looks like it's some kind of VR game for all ages, but it's mixed already. Which sucks because this actually looks interesting and feels like it actually has real polish. Now, at a certain point, I wonder if this game wouldn't have just been better as a regular game, and maybe that would have been something that solved the complaints on it. $14.99 English full audio. Donating to some charity, which I think this is the Steve Irwin family, if I was just to guess. But maybe not. So all it did was keep crashing. Let's see what the negative reviews say otherwise. It's truly beautiful. The scenery, at least. The characters are ugly. Although the game is great looking, it has huge design flaws that are hard to digest. It's like the devs never played VR before. Modeling is outdated and looks really bad. Could be good, but it's not. So we got bugs, we have it's crashing, we have it's ugly, just kind of a whole mess. And arguably it seems like they are focusing heavily on yeah, that is the Steve Irwin family. Seems like they're focusing heavily on advertising this as a charitable endeavor instead of a good experience. Yeah, if you had made this a regular game where you zoomed out a little bit, you could hide a lot of the bad level of graphics. Yeah, because you can make something look incredibly, incredibly bad simply by zooming in too much on it. I'm going to put this one on the follow list though, because this looks so much like a real game versus so many fake VR games that I'm hoping maybe there's a patch and or maybe it just gets more reviews and more people like it, and there was just some a lot of negative reviews to start with. Let's see, next we have a game on Steam called Cyberdad, which looks like it's a top-down twin-stick shooter. I don't think there's enough of a game here. It's free to play, but it's from Digipin. English only. So this is a student project. Is it a student project I want to talk about? Sure, I'll put it on the wish list because it's a student project and only because of that. Here we have ActRaiser Renaissance, which I think we'd already talked about this game. We can see now it's rated very positively, so I think at this point we can just jump straight to the wish list on it. This is a weird city builder / action RPG, so it combines several different like gameplay mechanics, and I'm really interested to see how that actually plays. Here we have the Castlevania Advanced Collection, which is rated very positively, so we can just go ahead and put that on the wish list too. $19.99 English and Japanese. We did actually manage to put 3 or 4 games on the wish list today, so it wasn't just all bad games, although we are still very heavily leaning towards most games being bad. Here we have another one of these G mode Japanese games coming out. $7.19 discounted. G mode $39. It does look like they're converting it from whatever square ratio cell phones that they were putting it on to stretching it out now to a widescreen, so maybe they're getting better at the porting and emulation of it. Here we have a game called Magical Girl Noble Rose, which this looks like it probably has an 18+ patch at the rate of the way these poses are going. Yeah, this definitely does not look like this is a game that has anything to offer unless you're looking at the nude version of it. It's $15.99 English, Japanese, and Chinese. Let's see. It is tagged with sexual language and nudity. There is no patch per se, though. It's just in the game. Yeah, and every single screenshot has the main heroine tied up or wrapped up by tentacles or something else. And in one of the screenshots, her clothes are ripped off of her. Although she's not naked, you can see her underwear. So yeah, very blatant as far as what the game is and who they're trying to sell it to. And that's probably very intentional too. They're not trying to trick people. They want to catch the attention of people who want to play those kinds of games. Whatever desperate few people are out there still like that. Here we have what looks like a Chinese simulation game of some sort. It's free to play with in-app purchases, Chinese only, single player, and MMO. kind of all over the place. Here we have a game on Steam called Bullet Wave, which is obviously just an asset flip first-person shooter. 74 cents, English, allegedly full audio. Here we have another sexual content. So I guess the timer is definitely reset at this point as far as games with sexual content in them. Although maybe it's been a while since we've seen a game with sexual content and a character in a school outfit, which that was the point that seemed to cause problems as far as listing games on Steam, is that if you had a high school Japanese student who was potentially in college or high school and over 18 years old, or even maybe over the age of consent in Japan, which sometimes is like 16, and sometimes in the United States it's been like 16 too. So that Steam and Valve seem to not want school outfits, and I guess we haven't directly seen any school outfits. But we also haven't heard any complaints of people not being allowed to publish their games, so maybe they finally just decided to stop making games like that. This game, 4-Color Jump, is another game that seems to it's just a jumping game with scenes of nudity for no real reason. It's $1.99, English, Chinese, Japanese. Then there's some kind of free DLC, which this may be the 18 plus patch, or maybe something else. Next we have Far Rock Dodgeball, which there might be a game here. Sports RPG game. I guess the real question is, how does this really play? Yeah, I don't know if this is maybe playing to stereotypes, or maybe this is just playing true to life. Going around New York, doing a whole bunch of dodgeball games and having kind of funny effects. It looks like there might be a real game here. $8.99, English, full audio. I'm going to put that on the follow list. Next we have a game called Hack or Die, which I think there's already been a game on Steam called Hack or Die. It definitely looks like it's just a frustration platforming game. Precision platformer, $12.59, English only. I'm going to say no to that. Not my type of game. Here we have Remy Raccoon and the Last Temple, which the Lost Temple looks like garbage. $5.09, English only. And here we have yet another game with sexual content. They're all getting released on Mondays for some reason. Usually they wait till Friday. Maybe this is because they're trying to get out of the way of the Tokyo Game Show announcements. That could be it. And while this is marked as having sexual content and being a dating sim and an RPG, I can't really tell what it is. I do see RPG elements in it. That's all I can see, though. It's $4.49 and it's Chinese only, so there's a question in that, how much content really would be there. Here we have a game on Steam called Black Forest, which, yeah, just looks like a simulation survival game, free to play, English only. That's too cheap for that type of game, but check it out if you're interested. We have the Addams Family Mansion Mayhem, based off the Addams Family animated movie, which they're making a sequel to, which not a terrible thought, but this is kind of a great example of copyright, though. The only reason why there was an Addams Family movie is because the rights holder of the Addams Family did not want it to go into public domain and did not want to lose the rights that it may have contractually signed away, earned in a pay or play style contract where you pay or play is the wrong phrase. It would be use it or lose it style contract where you own the rights to a movie for say 10 years. If you don't put out any new movie in that series or TV in that license in 10 years, then the rights revert back to the original rights holder. And so obviously nobody wants that to happen, so they will make something new. Otherwise, there's no reason why the Addams Family would exist. It totally should have disappeared. It probably shouldn't have existed in the first place. It was basically created on the creativity / fetish of whoever originally created the Addams Family, because it doesn't have a natural reason to exist. The idea of a gothic family of creepy people is far too unique a thing to just naturally appear. Whereas, say, your standard police procedural TV show obviously is such a basic idea. Obviously, there's going to be a bunch of those. And more movies and TV are pandering towards the obvious basic concepts, the tropes that have already been well established. Honestly, as I just generally think about the Addams Family as a group of characters, they're not well established characters. They don't really have a goal. They're just a family that kind of hangs out, and then something happens then you see their funny reactions to it. The characters themselves are not really unique or fleshed out. They all kind of have the same way of thinking and acting. You could easily write a story with like Pugsley doing something and then replace it with Wednesday, or replace Pugsley with Gomez or Morticia, and it would be about the exact same story. And if anything, there's kind of an othering in that the only thing that makes the Addams Family creepy is the way they're depicted in the cartoons. Once again, other them and make them look creepy. It on a basic level gets dangerously close to just teaching kids to distrust or laugh at people who look differently. Whereas in the real world, if you had like a huge forehead, you don't deserve to be made fun of. If you have a really wide face, you shouldn't be made fun of. If you have a mustache, you shouldn't be made fun of. If you have bags around your eyes, because you probably shouldn't be made fun of. Yeah. And frankly, if you feel more comfortable being a goth, you probably shouldn't be made fun of either. And yeah, it definitely feels like you're laughing at the Addams Family, not with the Addams Family. Regardless, this game is $39.99. It's got a bunch of languages on it. I guess I have to put it on the fall list. It's probably one of these movie tie-in games that is not worth actually owning, because it's always going to be too expensive, and there's probably not much of a game there. It is also, I think, worth mentioning that while it probably isn't the best game ever, there is a Hotel Transylvania game that is already on Steam and has been for a while. And the Hotel Transylvania movie probably is the reason why we saw the Addams Family movie come out, in the sense that they wanted to capitalize on that success. Next, we have a game on Steam called Infinite Cube Defense, which looks like nothing. $5.24 English only. Then we have The Chicken's Fall, which looks like nothing. for 99 cents, English and Portuguese Brazil. And then we have Jaksalajabi, which looks like a Korean game, but that word does not feel Korean to me. Kinetic novel that you experience a unique setup and story. So, kinetic meaning no branching paths. Visual novel. English is not supported, $3.99, Korean only. And it looks pretty weird. This would be the kind of thing it would be nice to see if a Korean could read this story and how they would feel about it. But I bet we'll never see any reviews on it at all. We're still in the very early days of Korean games being their own genre in their own right on Steam, where we see just tons of variety and tons of Korean releases. At the moment, they are getting mixed heavily with the Japanese and the Chinese games. Next, we have VR Summer Sports, which, yeah, this feels like the exact kind of thing you don't want to do in VR. Have people potentially flailing around, pretending to swim, pretending to run, getting tricked subconsciously into running into a wall or jumping over hurdles. This feels like a great way to hurt yourself. $9.99, single player only. Also, I guess this is just really late to the Olympics in general as far as a game. Here we have a game on Steam called Ninja Rise of a Hero, which I'm thinking no, but I want to say yes. So let's see a little bit of gameplay. It's clearly a mobile phone port, but could there be enough game here to convince me to want to play it? No, they can't even record their videos correctly. Plus, if they could record it correctly, then that would be maybe an option, but nah. This has to be a no. $2.99, bunch of languages. Here we have a game called Power Not 2, which they're calling an action roguelike. It kind of looks like a Metroidvania game. And in a funny way, this is an NES looking game, but you've just got so much going on the screen, it actually feels like there might be a game here. Retro tough style platformer, use a variety of weapons. $2.54, English only. See if we can see some gameplay to understand. Like, normally I would say no to this, just obviously, but there's something about this and then the amount of polish on it that makes me want to say maybe. See if this guy has made a Power Not 1. He made a game called Power Not Vanguard, which is a black and white game and has 6 reviews from 2017. And so now, 4 years later, he's brought it to the color era. Yeah, I think I would say no, but I'm going to put it on the follow list just to give it a chance. Maybe if he made a third version of Power Not, then that would maybe that would then catch my attention a little bit better. And then we have a game on Steam called Pawn Brain, which is apparently a card-based, chess-based movement. Seems to be kind of all over the place, but I love the bloody heavy metal visuals here. Yeah, and it looks like a puzzle game more than anything. $8.99, English only. I'm gonna put this on the follow list. That looks like it's somebody actually trying to show off their style and make a game. and not just make a simplistic puzzle game for no reason. And then here we have a game called Time of the Clones, which looks like it might be a Rick and Morty fan game, or just Rick fan game, no Morty. I don't know if there's good reason to dismiss this. Like, we've seen other games like this where you have like echoes of yourself, and by using echoes of yourself, you can solve puzzles. This is $3.03, bunch of languages. I'm gonna put this on the follow list. And it's also being published by Bad Wolf Games, which, that's kind of a great name. The rest of these games, though, look kind of like they are pretty low effort games. Yeah, I think this is one of those examples, though, where you've spoiled the broth here. You've just got too many games you've published here that are mixed reviewed and or just low effort anime girl games. So I'm going back to Time of the Clones and removing it from the follow list. Sadly, you've just lost credibility because of your previous releases, and that's important. That's an important example, and that needs to be made for all game publishers and developers. That you cannot get popular making garbage games and then all of a sudden try to pivot and make a real game. Alright, now I'm just scrolling down my Twitter feed to see if there's any new news, and then we'll be done for the stream today. People are getting the hands-on look at the Switch OLED. The speakers apparently are bigger and better in the OLED version, which I think there's an improvement there, certainly. And the new dock is feels better from what I hear. And the OLED seems to reduce the bezel, but it doesn't feel like there's really any major changes other than that. And yeah, I'm still scrolling down my Twitter feed. Yeah. Komatsu did come out and say, hey, we launched a new way in which our site looks. It really makes a lot of sense that every website should have updated its appearance the second like coronavirus pandemic started to happen. It seemed like something that would last more than a couple of weeks. That would have been a great time to say, all right, everybody from home who can web design, start web designing. We're going to just completely relaunch our appearance since we're sitting around doing nothing anyways. Because HTML programming and web design programming is something that you mostly do solo, even in big corporations. So, yeah, and of course, not everybody can program a new website, but you can certainly throw out ideas and give feedback, and you can give other kinds of solo jobs, solo tasks to employees who can't contribute at all to that idea. Although, frankly, if you're working at a website-based publisher, everybody should have at least some ideas and some way to contribute. I think I'm pretty much done. So that's going to be it for this stream. As always, I ask you to like, share, subscribe, comment, and watch every second of my videos. If you want to friend or follow me on any social media sites, there's a bunch of links down below. And if you want to support me further, there's a link to Patreon, or you can friend me on Steam and gift me a game off my wishlist. Thank you for watching. Have a good evening.